kids, start point slope form today. For future reference, you can look at section 5.7 in your book. Now you already know two other forms of equations. The first one that you know is standard form. And I love when I see an equation in standard form because I can figure out what the x and y intercepts are very easily. Remember the cover-up method? And if I can find those two intercepts, I can graph the line. Oh, I also like this one called slope-intercept form. I love equations that are in slope-intercept form because it gives me so much information. I know from here that I can figure out what the y-intercept is of the line, and I can figure out what the slope is, so I can graph that very easily. Today we're learning about point slope form. You're going to be so smart, so excited. Okay, we're going to start out with something you know. If I give you a point and I give you a slope, all I'm asking you to do is graph that line. So let's see, I'm looking for 0.11, 1, and I know that my slope is 3. How am I going to use that to graph my line? Well, I know that slope is rise over run, which I can always put a whole number over 1 equals 3 over 1. So my rise is going to be 3. 1, 2, 3. And my slope is going to be, my run is going to be 1. And there's my second point. And I can graph that line. Okay. There you go. I can graph that line. You do the same. Now, where it says equation in point slope form, skip that for now. We're going to come back to it. Okay. Here we go. If I give you a point and I give you a slope, can you graph that line? My point is 3, negative 2. So 3 on the x-axis, negative 2 on the y-axis. Okay. And my slope is negative 1/2. So remember, this is my rise over my run. And I'm going to keep that negative with the numerator here. So it's going to be down 1 over 2. Graph my second point. Draw that line. Now, let me think. My slope was negative 1/2. So I basically knew that that was going to be a line that went down. So it's looking good. Let's try one more. Got a point, and I've got a slope. So my point is 3, 4. 3, 4. Okay, and my slope is 0. What kind of line is that going to be? Is it going to go up or down or horizontally or vertically? Remember? A line with a slope of 0 has a rise of 0, and it's horizontal. So I can graph that one easily. I'm going to just do that like that. Okay. And so now I've graphed a line that has a slope of 0 and contains this point, 3, 4. I want you to graph the next 3 on your sheet. Come back to me when we're done, and we'll talk about how to write the equation in point slope form. So be sure to pause me. Okay. Now we're going to talk about point slope form here, and we're going to start with what we already know. You'll recognize that this is the slope formula, and if I have 2 points, I'll call my points x1, x sub 1, and y sub 1, and x sub 2 and y sub 2. If I have 2 points, I can figure out what the slope is by plugging it into that formula. But I didn't give you 2 points. I was giving you a slope and 1 point. So I actually gave you the slope, and I actually gave you one of the points, and I'll call that my x sub 1, y sub 1. Okay. And from there, we can derive the point slope formula. So basically, if I multiplied both of these sides by x minus x sub 1, these would divide out. And I would be left with the point slope formula, which is y minus y sub 1 equals m times x minus x sub 1. Just look at it for a second. And what I want you to see from here is that this value here represents the slope. And these two values here, your x sub 1 and your y sub 1, actually represent that point on the line. So I'm going to actually now check this out. This is going to be fun. Write an equation in point slope form if I'm given a point and a slope. Ba-ba-bum. Okay, so I got to figure out what these values mean. So this is going to be my x sub 1, y sub 1. This is the point that I'm given. Okay. This is going to be my what? That's going to be my m. That's going to be my slope. Okay. So here we go. Y minus, what's my y sub 1? Y minus 4 equals, what was my slope? 3 times x minus, what was my x sub 1? -2. I've done it. That's it. I've written the equation in point slope form. If you give me, if you're given the point and you're given the slope, yeah, I can actually simplify this. I'm going to simplify and leave change that. I'm going to get y minus 4 equals 3 times x plus 2. Bam! I've got myself an equation. This equation represents the line that's got a slope of 3 and has a point on that line of, this is the y, and this is the x. Remember that x is -2. So of -2, comma 4. We're going to go back and we're going to write the equations of the graphs we just drew. Okay. So here we go. In order to write this equation in point slope form, I want you to write on the top of your page, big somewhere, y minus y sub 1 equals, whoops, m times x minus x sub 1. We're going to use that format. We're going to use the information we have, and we're going to write those equations. So let's see. Before I start, let's actually assign our value. So this is going to be x1. This is going to be y sub 1. And this is going to be what? M. That's my slope. Just plug in the values. Y minus, what's my y sub 1? It's 1. Equals, what's my slope? 3. X minus, what's my x sub 1? It's 1. I am done. That's my equation in point slope form. Let's move on. Clear this up for us. This one's a little bit more complicated. There's only one tricky part in this, and if you got this, it's going to rock this section. Okay, so remember my equation is y minus y sub 1 equals m times x minus x sub 1. So this is going to be my x sub 1. This is going to be my y sub 1. Oops, sorry, I can't do that. Y sub 1, and this is going to be my slope. Okay? So I've got y minus y sub 1, -2. Don't forget to make that a negative. Equals, what's my slope? -1/2 times x minus 3. Okay. Just want you to realize that subtracting a negative is the same as adding, and if you've got this here, you'll have success later. So I have y plus 2 equals -1/2 x minus 3. I know. Give me more, Mrs. Sigel. Okay. Let's do the next one. Remember my equation is y minus y1 equals m times x minus x1. So let's see, my x sub 1 is my 3, and my y sub 1 is 4, and my slope is 0. So I have y minus 4 equals, what's my slope? 0 times x minus 3. Okay, great. I can actually simplify that. You don't need to distribute, but anything times 0 is going to be 0. So I would end up with y minus 4 equals 0. So I've written my equation in point slope form. Yes. Okay, you do the rest. Okay, then come back to me when you're finished. So pause me until you're finished. And we'll do the back side. Okay, so now if I give you an equation in point slope form, I want you to be able to look at that equation, and I want you to be able to graph it. And you can do that because when you can recognize that there's an equation in point slope form, you're like, dude, now I have my slope, and now I've got my point, and I know how to graph it. Okay, let me take this off since it doesn't belong there. Okay, so looks to me, this is the equation for point slope form. It's like my slope is going to be what? 2. Yeah, that's a positive slope. Should be expecting that my line will be going up. Now I've got to figure out what the point is. So I'm looking for an xy value. So remember, I'm looking for my x sub 1, my y sub 1. So my x sub 1 is right here. It's 4. Where's my y sub 1? Oh, right there. It's 3. And there you go. Got myself a point and a slope. So I can graph that. My point is 4, 3. My slope is 2, up 2, over 1. And I can draw that line, which I'm going to do quickly. Sorry, it's not so accurate. You make yours better. Okay, draw a straight line through those 2 points. Okay, let's try another one. Here's where that remembering that adding is the same thing as subtracting a negative. That's where this is going to come into play. So here's my equation. I'm going to find my slope first. That's the easiest. My slope is 3. It's going to be a positive slope. Oh, I already did that for you. Okay, so I would expect that that's going to be going up. Now I'm looking for my point. So I'm looking for an x and a y here. So here we go. My x is easy. It's 2. Now my y is harder because there's a plus sign here. This is addition. And so in your head, whenever you see addition, I want you to change it to subtracting a negative. Okay? Subtracting a negative. Now you can see that this is both subtraction. You can see that these two expressions match up. So now I know that my y is negative 1. That's it. That's the hardest thing. There it is. Okay, so let's go ahead and graph that. My point is 2, negative 1. My slope is 3, so it's 3 over 1, up 3, over 1. And I can graph that. So can you. So do it with me. Okay. Okay, I want you to try the next 2. Now remember what this slope means. It's 1 over 5, so it's going to be up, rise 1, run 5. Next one. Okay. Last thing I want us to do is I want us to be able to look at an equation in point slope form, and I want us to be able to figure out what the point on the line is. Okay? They created this equation. I know the slope. I mean, that has a slope of 4. That line's got a slope of 3. That line's got a slope of 8. That line's got a slope of -2. Okay? But I want us to figure out what the point is. And this is where we need to remember, what do we do when we've got an addition sign here? So if we can remember that this is really x minus -4, that makes it really easy, because this is my x sub 1 and this is my y sub 1. Okay? So my x sub 1 is -4 and my y sub 1 is 1. So I have -4, 1. I want you to write that in your space. Okay. Looking at the next one, we can see that my x sub 1 is going to be 4 and my y sub 1 is going to be 1. So my equation is going, the point on the line is going to be 4, 1. Can you figure out the next point on the line? Remember, this is really y minus -1. This is really 8 times x. Sorry, let me undo that. X minus -4. That means my x value is -4, my y value is -1. What do you think the x value of the next ordered pair is going to be? You got it. 4. The y value going to be? You got it. -1. 4, -1. Okay. Good job, guys. I will see you in class.